way, and that's Huntington Bank, Deloitte, and Sheetz actually has been with us and helping us to make sure that we're giving you relevant information each and every day. So we really appreciate that. And we also have an opportunity on Monday. I believe we have Mike Green and Matt Harbour joining us, who are having a venture fund, and they are going to be able to talk to us about the funds that they've invested in and what they're up to. So that matters to each and of our entrepreneurs and people who are looking for capital, as well as making sure they understand what's happening in the region. So we are thrilled about that. And then we have a chat. The chat will allow you to have an opportunity to ask Travis questions, and Jonathan will try to make sure that we can get to each and every one of those questions, and we'll just see how our show goes. So I am going to bring out Travis. Travis, thank you so much for joining us today. We have known Sheetz for a while at the Tech Council. You've been partners with us for a few years. You even had like a little, you took a desk out in our space to have a Pittsburgh presence. So we were pretty excited about that. And we're also excited that you have a Pittsburgh innovation group that is doing some work right now, and they're spawning hopefully some interesting things in Sheetz in the future. But I'm gonna pass the baton to you, and obviously welcome, but talk about who Travis Sheetz is, a little bit about Sheetz, the vision, the mission, what your company is up to. And we're gonna have some chance for me to ask you some questions about what's happened since COVID and where the future lies. So thank you, Travis.
Absolutely, thank you. It's great to be here. We kind of consider ourselves remote Pittsburghers at Sheetz. So we're 90 miles away, but obviously have a pretty big presence over there. And the market is fantastic for us, just a great customer base. And so we're happy that we'll be able to put more of a permanent base over there with our innovation hub. That group is meant, just real quick on that group, it's a small group right now. We will continue to add, I think. But that group is meant to be remote, right? So it's good that they're remote and kind of away from us, because we want them thinking about transformational innovation. So what could we be doing that may be completely unrelated to what we do today? And so we want them kind of away from the rest of us in many respects. We want them to be able to think about competencies and things that our company has that could carry forward, but we don't want them thinking about the four walls that we operate in today, even the bricks and mortar as an example. We want them really thinking about transformational things, 15, 20 years down the road. So we're excited about that. And that's what that group really is spending their time on. So a little bit about me. I am in the family. I'm second generation. So we have 3 generations working. My Uncle Bob started the company in 1952 when he bought a small dairy store from my grandfather. My grandmother had a dairy business that was called Harshberger Dairy, and they eventually sold to Gallagher Dairy, which I think a lot of you probably have heard of. So we were in, my family was in the dairy business. It was really on my grandmother's side. It was not the name Sheetz. And so my uncle was 18 and he decided, hey, I'm gonna buy one of my dad's dairy stores. They weren't doing very well. And I think it could be something different. And so that's what he did. It was $990. And he bought the inventory. My grandfather said, I'll sell you the inventory for $900, and then you put $90 in the register, and then because you're going to need, and that's how he got started. So, and he had that store for like 10 years before he did anything else. And then he learned, he understood what he was going to, what the business was about and how he could make money. And he started expanding like more in the 60s. And then in the 70s, we added gas. So our beginning was really in food first, and then we added gas, and then gas went crazy. And then we started putting in, these stores that had a bunch of pumps out front and just this major gas offer. And we were really probably more of a gas and convenience operator at that time. Our volumes were really going up. We were really driving a lot of traffic, but it was just, mostly gas type traffic. And then in the late 80s, we got really back into the food business when we created this concept of MTO, or made to order food. We felt like we realized at that point that we were more than just a quick stop gas place. We had the ability to be more of a one-stop shop place where we could consolidate trips for people, right? So everybody makes all these trips on a daily basis. And we realized we could consolidate all those into like one trip. And so, hey, I need to stop and get gas and get a snack and use the restroom. Our restrooms for us are very strategic. I mean, we don't just have them because you have to have them. they're strategic. I mean, when you're on a vacation or a trip, you need to go to the restroom, right? And we're not going to make any money off of that, but what we're going to do is we're going to make you stop, and then you're going to buy other stuff. And so that's why we put so much money into our restrooms. Our restrooms, for those of you who haven't seen them, or some of them in the new stores are like, kind of hotel type quality.
They
We
are.
put some,
The Taj
and
Mahal
that's
of
really that we
restrooms, right?
consider that an important trip for us.
Yeah.
And who makes that decision typically in the car? Typically the mom, typically female, makes that decision on where to stop at the restroom. Or people like my cousin Ryan, who we were talking about earlier in the conversation, people who are OCD and have that tendency to
Right.
be, they want something clean, right? And so, so that's a strategic focus for us. But at any point, back in the early 90s is when we realized that we were about being, the combined mission, we call it, is the concept, is we're combining missions for you. You can do a bunch of things under one roof. And so that's when we decided that food was an important part of that mission. And we got into MTO, and we started out with the order points, and that's really probably the first recognizable technology innovation that we had as an organization. We were the first. I could never prove outside of our country, but definitely in our country. But we always say we were the first in the world to have touch points for ordering. We were in that way back in the day, and they looked like the old, televisions with the big,
Right.
set, But we were back into touch screen ordering way back, and we didn't do it for the sake of technology, and we don't use technology just for the sake of technology. It always has some kind of fundamental, advantage to our business. We did it because when we allowed people to order themselves, we were essentially taking labor off of our store people, because you didn't have to stand there and take somebody's order. You were essentially taking labor away from the store and putting it in the hands of customers. So customers are now, they're doing their own ordering. It was also much more accurate. The orders were much more accurate because you were touching into a computer, and then it was printing out on the back end, and you didn't have to worry about communication, issues or breakdowns or whatever. So it was very strategic why we were using those order points. It wasn't just to look cool and to have technology within our stores. But oh, by the way, we started to look cool and have technology in our stores, And so that was really our first foray probably into technology solutions as an organization. And then we just, the food just kept growing, and it continues to grow today. We are still very focused on the fact, though, that we are not just a food place. We are truly a kind of a one-stop shop. We're here to take, advantage of a lot of different things that you may need to do. So we have car washes in some stores. We have drive-through for people who want drive-through. So we're always trying to expand on that concept of, what else can we add to our offer that will save you a trip. And I will tell you, I will end with this real quick. Our vision as an organization is to put the Sheetz as we know it today out of business. And so behind that it's obviously a perpetual vision, right? Because every time you do it, you got to keep doing it. And so it continues to drive us. But the idea behind that is that we don't want competitors putting us out of business. We want the new Sheetz store that's down the street from an old Sheetz store to put that old Sheetz store out of business. I mean, that's the idea behind it. So we're always trying to drive to figure out how we can make things, better and actually put ourselves out of business. So that's really what drives our organization.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing that you can be so candid with us about that. So we really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
But what happened with COVID? I mean, can you talk about what happened in the business as soon as the onset of COVID was real?
COVID was, as for all of you in different ways, just such a shock to our business and to our system. I was down in Florida looking to have a few days vacation with my family. And that was the day I went down there was the day that the NBA postponed. You remember that? Yep. The day the NCAA tournament was canceled. It was like all the big stuff happened in that day. And then school started just,
Right.
And I was down there with my family on the beach in Clearwater. And I was like, my wife looked at me and she said, "We need to go home, don't we?" And I said, "I've got to go home. I can't, I can't even think. I can't even concentrate." So we got the next morning, I went home, we got the plane and we went home. And we, the first 10 weeks of COVID was just crisis management. So we put everything strategic off the table. everything. We stopped having meetings around strategy. Everything was around COVID. It was around managing this crisis. We put a team together. We had 3 p.m. phone call every single day, Saturday, Sunday, every day of the week. And there was about 12 of us. Most of us were department heads, speaking for different functions in the company, but we also had communications people on there because we started communicating to the stores pretty much on a regular basis, multiple times a day. And there was so much to think about, beyond, the first thought obviously was just the safety of our employees and the safety of our customers. But then you just started thinking about everything else, the government and the regulations were changing, and, all the governors every day were making different decisions. And so you always had something that you had to address that day, but it was complete crisis mode. Just complete crisis mode. And, then it started to turn in May. It was probably leading up to Memorial Day. And that's when things started opening up, right? And probably in hindsight, opening up too early. But that's when there was some, when Governor Wolf had this sort of red, yellow, green, and we started making our way into the yellow and into the green. And then all of a sudden, people started coming out, and our sales, we went from being down 30+% to being up over last year. People were just coming out in droves. And, we weren't in that position during COVID. Like I said, we were down pretty significantly. Grocery stores were, they were going crazy during COVID because they were the one thing that everyone was sort of gravitating to. But we were not in that position. Our gas sales were way down because people weren't traveling. People weren't really leaving their homes in many respects. So we weren't really, we were shocked at when it opened up and how much it opened up and how busy we became. And so we shifted from that. We got into a mode where we were comfortable. It's sad to say that, but we have employee positives every single day. We still do. We had 3 yesterday throughout the company, but we kind of understand how to manage it, and we have it. It's awful when it happens, but we feel like we have it under control and what we need to do. And we were very transparent through this as well with our customers. So every time we had an employee positive, we quarantined other employees who were in contact with them, and we put a press release out, and we told the public we had an employee positive at this store.
Wow.
And we closed the store to clean it, and we were very transparent, and that hurt our sales at those stores without question. When people heard you had an employee positive, they were just, but we got a lot of positive feedback from customers and from media, quite frankly, which we generally don't get. Media usually isn't giving you highly positive feedback, but we got a lot of positive feedback for our transparency because we communicate every time, there was a positive in the store. So, but it was complete crisis mode. And then I would say over the last 4 to 6 weeks, probably around 4 weeks ago, when I felt myself, we really started to talk more about strategy again and about long-term. We started to have some online, virtual sessions around, okay, what are things going to look like in this new normal? What are people always going to think more about than they did in the past? They're going to think more about hygiene and about sanitation and about what they touch and what they, they're just going to think more about that. I don't know how much more, but they're going to think more about it post-COVID than they did pre, and those are the kind of things that we're trying to figure out, how does that change our strategy going forward?
So there's some questions, Jonathan. I want to start providing some questions for Travis.
Yeah, let's start at the very top with Matt Pavlovsky. Wants to know, when will Sheetz start considering maybe bringing stores to like the downtown areas of like Pittsburgh and so forth, get more of that urban location?
Yeah, so that's one of the charges of our innovation group. They have full authority to get us into new formats, and we've already discussed it. We have a format that we call the Sheetz Cafe, which is in college town. So there's one at Penn State, one at UVA, one at IUP, and we had one at WVU that we closed. It was kind of different. It was a 12,000 square foot. It was much bigger than we wanted to do. But that is very specific to a college audience. So we've run through that test, but we have some other interest in testing sort of this urban format because we really don't have stores in those areas. We used to have stores in downtown Pittsburgh. We had one right down the street from Pitt, but we want to test that out and see what, what would that offer look like? And how could we appeal to that customer, more of a pedestrian customer? So I think you'll see it within the next 2 to 3 years, I would think.
Exciting. Very cool. Our next question from Jay Glunt. He wants to know, regarding the organization's use of technology, he believes you are one of the first and possibly the only convenience or gas station provider to allow for payment by phone or watch at the gas pump. He loves it and says it's fantastic. Wants to know what is the next tech solution you'll be unrolling for the customers.
So we are that digital thing. I've told our people we've had some good fortune through this because we were declared an essential business. But with good fortune, good fortune doesn't just come, right? It's through hard work that good fortune happens to you. And so we were really far down the road on digital. And so we pushed it out, but we didn't have to create it and push it out like many other companies did. It was pretty much ready and we pushed it. So we pushed out, online ordering we already had, pay ahead. We pushed out curbside. We pushed out scan and go, I should say. So you can come in the store and use your phone and go walk through the store and scan products and just leave. You don't have to talk to an employee or anything. All that stuff was right on the verge, and that was because of all the hard work we did years ahead. So we were able to push that out pretty quickly. And obviously in the COVID environment, that's where you want to test that stuff. So we're just looking to continue to push it. So we want people to be able to prompt the pump ahead of time and pay for their gas before they even pull up there. And then when they pull up, the pump will register and know that they're there. We're still looking into this whole delivery thing and how can we, where does that fit for Sheetz? Because we're all about people making visits to Sheetz so they can combine different trips. Now we're talking about going into people's homes and, how can we make that experience? How can we translate that for Sheetz? We're trying to figure out through your phone, how can you make a frictionless experience, right? Because with COVID, the whole idea of friction now is kind of taking on a new level and a new term. People really want to have that, be able to have that experience where I really don't need to interact and touch, anything. And so we're trying to figure out how we can consolidate all these different ways of payment into, and all of our loyalty and everything else. How can we get our experience at Sheetz into one scan? You scan one time, and you've registered your loyalty, you've paid for things, you've taken care of everything instead of doing these different transactions. So we're really trying to push that digital envelope as much as we can.
So we also have, there's a question here, I'm going to just jump to the bottom. It's from Anita, because I was interested in remote work. Remote work becomes a way of life, right? Let's just look to the future. More people will be working from home. This will impact, obviously, gas sales, but like Anita says, what are the plans to diversify revenue besides food and convenience? Anything that you're thinking about that you think you could share? Because a lot of people are asking about your R&D.
Yeah, so I think that, and again, our innovation group is looking at a lot of different things, but I can tell you just, what we're looking at is, okay, so the demand curve is changing quicker than we thought, right? We knew the demand curve was going to change over the next 15 to 20 years because of electric vehicles, right? So we've already been planning for that. And that's why we've continued to grow our food programs and other things. But the demand curve is changing for other reasons now. It's going to change because people are working remotely. And so we're going to sell less gas. And so that means that we're not going to have those trips anymore. So we got to generate additional trips, or we have to generate additional items in the basket for the trips that people are already making. So we're starting to think about, okay, what trips can we eliminate? Well, in the COVID world in particular, people want to, and we found this out and the reason why our sales are doing well, people want to be in the retail environment as little as possible for as little time as possible. They don't want to be exposed to anything. And so can we bring in more grocery items? We're sort of going back to where we were in the 80s. We used to sell a lot more grocery items. But when you think about the middle of the aisles at grocery stores, Amazon has really taken that stuff because that's stuff that's in boxes and jars and in bags and it's shelf stable. You can order that stuff online, either from Instacart or you can just order it from Amazon because it's shelf stable. It doesn't spoil. But the trips that people still have to make to the grocery store is for fresh products. So the stuff on the end of the aisles at the grocery store. So what can we take from the end of the aisles, either the produce aisle or the, the ready to go, ready to eat kind of aisle that they have at Giant Eagle and Wegmans and those places? And how can we bring that stuff into our environment? because if we could do that and we could be a meal solution for people, we could save them another trip. And
Right.
so I'm really interested in how we could do that. I think that there's some potential there.
Very cool. We got another great question here from Bernie Mongilio from CGI. Always glad to see Bernie on our call with us. So Bernie says, first off, he is struck by your agility. He says, in evolving and innovating the business, and very much demonstrated by your response to COVID-19. Wants to know, what do you attribute to this agility? And also wants to know about 7-Eleven recently announced the purchase of Speedway. Any impact to Sheetz from a competitive perspective on that?
Yeah, two great questions. Agility is something that we're always purposefully pushing on ourselves. We worry that as we get big, we're going to lose that. I mean, that's one of my biggest worries. Because it's really what has made us who we are. And I think part of it is that always thinking that that there's a tiger on our tail. You know, we always think that somebody's getting us, and so we're always pushing to change. We also have a very thin organizational structure. And so, you know, my family's in the stores every day. We know all of our individual stores. We don't manage this company like a portfolio of assets like many other companies do. We know our individual stores. We know our people. We're able to get things done because we have very little red tape and hierarchy within our company. We probably have to manage ourselves on the other side of that, which is we've had to learn to be better at process and test and learn. And, you know, because my family is just very much like, you know, we see something work in one store, we're like, roll it out across the company. You know, we're very, it's easy for us to take risk because we own the company, first of all, but second of all, we believe in it. We believe that you've got to continue to evolve. And so agility is something that's just kind of ingrained in our culture. As far as the Speedway sale, very interesting because we're going into Columbus, Ohio. It's our next new market. We're going to be opening there starting in April. And so, you know, for us, we generally think it's probably beneficial, to be honest, for us, because you're taking a company, which is a local based company. I mean, Speedway Marathon started, you know, that company is based right outside of Columbus, between Columbus and Dayton. And so you're taking a local company and now it's going to be owned by 7-Eleven, which is a company from Texas, and the umbrella company is from Japan. And so here we are as a local central Pennsylvania family company coming into that market. I think it's going to help us in terms of, you know, from a brand standpoint. I really think it's going to help. And the other thing is that whenever you have this mergers and acquisitions in our business, when you pay a lot of money for other companies, you need to make a return on that. You know, you need to pay off that investment. And so I don't think that that new company is going to be in the mood to really, you know, fight in a strong way. You know, they're going to need to make a return on that. And so we're going to be able to, I think, go in there as a new player and really, I think, grow some market share. So
there's a statement by Peter Gleason that he's saying that how are Sheetz company, how are Sheetz customers and employees responding to the General Assembly's recent elimination of the beer gas sales prohibition?
It's great because we used to have to do 2 transactions at store level. And so now we can do anything, anywhere. We used to have to tell people what register they had to go to. It was such a communication problem. We've been pushing to get that eliminated for a while. And I think COVID actually really opened up the PLCB in Pennsylvania. They really loosened up with COVID. And because a lot of bars and things were shut down, and they realized a lot of the volume was going out through people like us. And so they needed to make the experience a little better. So that's nothing but positive for us.
Well, how do you keep the culture at a company your size with the revenues that you have and being family owned? How do you keep the culture? I know you talked about having a thin hierarchy.
Yeah. Yeah, we actively manage it and measure it. I mean, we do lots of surveying. We have what we call our DNA markers, which are kind of like our values that most companies have that, but we really live to it and we hire to it. I think ultimately, being a family company, the most important thing is that the family and that the leadership really lives the culture, you know? And so, you know, we're out in the store. I was out in the stores all through COVID. I didn't see any reason I couldn't change that. I mean, we're asking our people to be open and be out there as essential workers. And so, you know, I needed to be out there. And so I don't change that. We just, you know, we just pride ourselves on remaining close to our stores. I mean, that's where everything happens, and you can't become this sort of corporate, company where, with the ivory white tower and just disconnected from your people. You've always got to maintain that connection to your people. But we actively manage it. I mean, it's not something that just happens overnight. We manage culture. And if we see culture, falling backwards in even one of our 600 plus stores, we go in there and make changes. I mean, we're very active about it. We do not allow culture to fall back for very long.
So what outside of gas, what's your top selling across all your stores? What's your most top selling item or product?
Well, our individual top selling product, I think, is still 20-ounce Mountain Dew. I mean, that's what it had been for years. Because we slant young, we do. So it would be anything that younger people tend to buy. We still sell in food service. I mean, we still sell more hot dogs in terms of on a unit basis than anything else, because they're, 2 for $99, so we still sell more of them in terms of units. So, but beverage for us, in terms of gross profit dollars, beverage and food are actually pretty close. And people were surprised by that. They kind of assume food, because of MTO and everything else, but we just sell a ton of beverages. I mean, that really is a big driver. Obviously, it's something that gas customers in particular, when you stop for gas, many times you go in and get a beverage. So,
Right.
That's a big driver for us.
And so what about hiring? There's a question in there about hiring. Are you hiring for tech talent? You hiring overall? What about, are they working from home?
Yeah.
How does that exist in this new world?
Yeah, so we, we're pretty controlled about the overhead that we add every year, and so the corporate positions. But tech is the one that grows more than any other, for sure. We had a bunch of open positions through COVID that we actually just filled. So I think things kind of opened up a little bit now, and people, it's kind of a weird time to join a new company during COVID. But that's opening up. But we're also, what COVID has taught us is that we can have people working remotely and still be okay. We were probably more resistant to that than other companies because of our culture, and because we're a service company. We own bricks and mortar stores. We're used to face-to-face. Right. So we like to operate that way corporately. But COVID has taught us that we don't have to all be together all the time, particularly our technology positions. So we are now much more open to technology positions, living in places like Pittsburgh, like Raleigh, North Carolina, and like now Columbus, Ohio, So that'll allow us to attract more and better talent too.
That's great. So Jonathan, there are a few other questions that maybe we can get to.
We got about a minute or so left. So let me pull up here. So we have one here from Dave Radin. Says, your attention to customer trends as you're describing is outstanding. Says, sounds like you and your team really understand the dynamics that cause the risks of the focus on the impacts. That's more of a comment there. Sorry about that. Let me see. Let's go down to Tyler here. I said, aside from in-store employees, but that's talent stuff. I'm all over the place here. Here's a great one from Scott Harshman. So Travis, great to finally have a Sheetz on Route 30 in Greensburg around Westmoreland Mall. Can you talk about the challenges you face in finding appropriate locations in select markets like this one? Also, do you own or lease the land for most of your locations? And P.S. always points out to his kids that your gas trucks are super clean.
Well, starting with the gas trucks, that's a brand thing. I mean, that's very intentional. We have our own truck washing, and they come back and they get washed like 5 times a week. So that's why they're so clean. We were trying to get into the gas business back in the day, and we wanted people to know that our gas was quality. And we thought that those gas trucks should be very, very clean. As far as real estate, we tend to lease more than buy, but we would rather buy. It's just that people want to lease their land more now today. They want to hold on to it. And finding locations, I mean, that's where I started. When I graduated from graduate school at Vanderbilt back in 1995, I started as a real estate site selector and in Pittsburgh. And my goal was to grow that market in the Ohio market. And so that's really what drives our business. At the end of the day, we are a location-driven business. Let's face it, we're a convenience store, right? So Pittsburgh today, we have a lot of the high traffic routes covered. Now we're trying to get into those more sort of closer to homes in the neighborhoods. we start with high traffic locations. We call that sort of the phase one market build out. But then we start to go into places where we're closer to homes and businesses. And those stores tend to do better in food service versus the more of the highway locations. So, but yeah, we've been trying to get on Route 30 in Greensburg for a long time. I'm glad we finally got that one done.
Well, so one last question from Christine Ferguson. She's saying that the top sellers have a poor impact on people's health. Do you consider that as part of the equation that results in a poor state of health in the American public? And she's talking about 26% of 6 to 12-year-olds are considered obese or overweight. Any focus on health and some of those strategies that impact us? I think we're much cognizant of that right now.
Yeah, so when it comes to that, we joined with the Partnership for a Healthy America, PHA, about 5 or 6 years ago. And that was a program. It was separate from Michelle Obama, but it was when Obama was in office and Michelle was focused on nutrition in schools. And so she was a big spokesman for them. But as part of that program, we pledged to do certain things to meet that criteria. And so we went through that several years ago. But it involved things like having certain kinds of offer in the stores, having certain healthy kids items, posting your calorie content, which not everybody has to, but we did it earlier than everyone else. And so we got into a lot more on the healthy end there. Our strategy there is not to lead with healthy, because we don't think we're ever going to be a leader in healthy, but to have it available and an option for people, and to have it affordable, which is another thing that you'll hear about when you talk about nutrition in these food deserts, is that it's often not affordable to eat healthy. Healthy stuff tends to be more expensive. So that's what we tend to focus on. So I want to make sure that we have something healthy for everyone. I think what we're looking into now is how can we show you different menu choices based on what your choice of nutrition is. Everyone's different. Some people are low cal, low carb, gluten-free, whatever it is. With our order point system, you should be able to go up to that and hit, well, I'm on a low carb and I want to see everything you have that might appeal there, But we are a brand overall, at the end of the day, about choice. We have a lot of stuff that is not super healthy for you. We know we do. We're okay with that. We're not running from that, because we're our brand of choice. If you choose to drink a sugary soda, then you're going to choose to do that. But oh, by the way, we want to make sure we have water and light calorie stuff as well if you choose not, We appeal to vehicles that have many different customers inside of them, and we want to make sure that, we call it no veto. We want to make sure that no one in that vehicle was able to veto a Sheetz stop, that there's something for everybody in that vehicle. So that's our angle. We just want to make sure that we have choice. We are not going to take a stance on health, because we couldn't win in that arena.
And you've been a leader in civic engagement in terms of food. I know you have a huge, everything that happened during COVID, and where kids were actually getting 2 of their 3 meals a day from school.
Yeah.
It was very
we joined a partnership with Feeding America a couple of years ago. And so, kids not knowing where their next meal coming from is just, there are numbers out there now. They say with COVID, it's maybe 1 in 4 kids who are food insecure, and they really they're not sure where the next meal is coming from. Obviously, we're in the food business. We give our food away at the end of the day to Feeding America. They have the local food banks come and collect it. So, but we also give a lot of monetary donations there. And that's where we stepped up during COVID and did those lunches for kids who used to get their lunch at school and weren't getting it anymore. So.
Well, listen, we've spent enough time with you. We know that we could spend more. There's people saying, what about a repair shop? Maybe you have that at Sheetz. There's a lot of people asking for vegan options, etc. I know you have your hands full. I really appreciate, on behalf of the tech community, that you spent time with us today. Is there anything that you want to say to all of us here that hasn't been covered?
I just want to say, appreciate, the work that you all do and how that's driving. Pittsburgh has changed so much, and technology and innovation has been such a big part of it. And I'm just, we're so proud to have Pittsburgh so close to us, because it's such a great resource now. It's just amazing how that area has changed. And I think all of you on here certainly have been a big part of that. So we certainly appreciate that at Sheetz. As I said, we consider ourselves remote burgers. So
good. We like that. So Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Travis, for joining with us. Really appreciate the work and your leadership and your time. And everyone else, be safe. Have a great weekend. And we're back here on Monday.
Thank you. See you, everyone. Appreciate it.
See you, Travis.